Hey everybody, it's your old pal Steve Moore here, owner of Run More, this fabulous brick and mortar running shop located in Westminster, Maryland. Hey, today we're gonna be reviewing two shoes from a relatively new brand that came out in earlier 2024. It's called Mount to Coast. Just real quick before we get into it, these shoes were provided to me from Mount to Coast. They have no say in any of our final edits. I'm not providing this in advance, but we did get these shoes from them to specifically review and try out, which we were super excited to do. So I had to be honest, this was a new brand for me like 2 months ago. I really didn't have a whole file on Mount to Coast, and obviously it's a new brand, so there's not a whole lot of information out there or previous models to compare this to. But since they reached out to us, and I would say in the past month, 2 months, we have seen more interest in this brand. We have seen some people walking in the shop wearing this brand. We've seen more people that are just out and about on social media, so they've definitely ramped up their production and ramped up the amount of activity that they're doing out there and trying to get on people's feet. So we were very excited to try it, and I'm always into trying shoes, so very exciting for us. So we're gonna dive into the two models that they have out currently, which is the R1 and the S1. There are some characteristics that are shared from both, so I think let's dive in first to sort of some of the nitty-gritty parts of these shoes, and then we're gonna break down each model and why one might be better for you than the other one. So first, let's get into some of the midsole stuff. This is a light cell midsole, which is a nitrogen-infused PEBA midsole. So it is durable, it is light, and it has some bounce to it. This has what they call their Go Flow midsole geometry. So this is sort of their, I hate saying meta rocker or however you want to say it. It's their nice smooth transition from heel to toe. It adds what their glidey technology is what they're calling their Go Flow. This also has a nice breathable mesh jacquard upper, which is apparent on both of them. And this has what they call their zero sag midsole insert, which was a very new terminology for me. So we did a little bit of digging here, and it's a little piece that's added into each shoe that's giving a little bit of extra durability. You know, they're claiming a lot of durability, but also providing a little extra guidance to both shoes, just a little bit of inherent stability to it to give you just a little more efficiency and not so much maybe bobbling side to side on both. So that's some of the specs on just the overall midsole pieces, and let's dive into a little bit between the S1 and the R1. But first, if you're enjoying this fine video, do me a solid, like and subscribe. It's a really easy way to support our channel and for us to continue to do fun things like review new products. So let's get into it. I'm gonna start with the R1 just because it's in my hand at the moment. You can see in my hand the R1. This is the racer version. So we have an S1 and we have an R1. So your S1 is like your trainer and your R1 is like your racer. And I've run in both of them and I have thoughts on both, but I figure we'll start with the R1 because R comes before S in the alphabet. First, it's $160 and it is a kind of a beautiful shoe. I know that's not a huge thing for a lot of people, but I actually really like the look of this shoe. It almost has like a elevated dad style to it. Like I dig walking around in white shoes anyway. I kind of feel like a hipster in it and I very much enjoy it. This shoe has an 8mm drop from 35 down to 27mm. And for me, this has a very nice amount of width to it. This is a nice breathable and very forgiving forefoot. And again, if you've been watching our videos, I have a lot of stuff going on with my feet. I got bunion issues, got all kinds of stuff. So I very much enjoyed the width on this. One of the other big characteristics that separate these two, if you might notice this little weird little bungee thing here. And I think this is what intrigued me most about the brand and specifically this model, is this gives you a little more play to sort of tighten and loosen how you want your forefoot to be. And you know, this brand, one of their taglines is, we don't start until after a marathon. Like their target demo is ultra marathoners. And I'm getting ready for an ultra marathon and I've been putting in a crap ton of miles the last couple months. So this was like a perfect shoe for me to try and maybe think about for an upcoming race. And I would say both these shoes I put on out of the box, and both these shoes I ran, 15 to 20 miles straight out of the box and had no real problems with either of them as far as like blisters and fit and all that kind of stuff. But I will say I was very intrigued by this, and I felt that really did give just a little bit more flexibility through the forefoot. I wasn't sure at first, and I kept thinking I was going to trip over that. I wasn't 100% on how to kind of do this because I've never had a shoe that has an adjustable forefoot like this. But once I kind of played with it, I got the hang of it, and I was worried about kicking or tripping over this guy. Didn't, and I'm sure you can tuck it and do some stuff with it, but I just kind of left this as it is, and it did not bother me one bit, and I enjoyed the width of this very much. I will also say it's a very quiet shoe. You know, one thing when I'm walking around the shop or when I'm running, like I'm constantly listening to the people I'm running with and myself to just kind of hear how the shoe is. And like if I was a cat burglar, like this would be a shoe that I would wear. First off, it looks like a cat burglar shoe, but it also is just a very quiet shoe when you're running. This go flow geometry that they do, it really is a nice smooth feel, and not like some of the other brands out there that have like a super exaggerated feel. It's not like, you know, the first time I ran in like an Asics Glide Ride where I was like, holy crap, this has so much awesome glidiness to it. It is just a quiet, smooth shoe. It's not an overly aggressive rocker platform whatsoever, but I think the Keras, and you can't even almost really see it, but I will tell you, it is nice and soft and smooth and quiet and forgiving in the forefoot, and it does have some bounce to it, and I can see why you would want to put this shoe on for a longer distance race, because it does almost feel like it becomes part of your foot, and especially because it has so much of the characteristics that you can customize it. Even little things like there's a nice little band here to tuck your shoelaces in. Like they do try to think of some of those little nitty gritty pieces between the two. I would say for somebody who like I am getting ready for like a very long race, I don't know if this would give me enough cushion to do, you know, 12-20 hour race, but I ran, you know, couple hours in this shoe, and I've run a bunch of times in this shoe now, and I think it's great for for an everyday trainer for $160. I could certainly run a marathon in this shoe, not a problem whatsoever, but I don't know if I would run 100 miles in it. But I will say it is very comfortable, and I will say also 8mm is a little on the high end for me for a drop, you know, and it's, a lot of that is personal preference, but I didn't notice it quite as much on this one. So just something to be aware of. It is for some of the, especially for like racy shoes, 8mm is definitely on the higher end for a lot of the stuff that we see for a racy shoe. But overall, I very much like this shoe, and for $160, I like the look, I like the fit, I like the style. I think for a new brand, they did a great job with it. So that is the R1. And now we're gonna compare it to the S1. And I think one of the things I wanted to do first and foremost was just kind of show you the width difference between the two. You know, they're both the same size, they're both 11.5s, but really much more width, much more sort of volume on the racer than on the trainer. I almost thought it might be the other way around, just because, you know, you kind of want to slim down a little bit on a racy shoe. But anyway, the racer is definitely wider and definitely has a little bit more forgiveness, and only the racer has that adjustable forefoot to it. So, you know, if you're kind of oscillating between the two, keep that in mind. You're gonna have some more width here. If you have more of a narrow fit, you might want to be here. Now, interestingly enough, between these two shoes, obviously we have, they look different. This has like sort of the black bottom to it, and this has the white. They're calling this version a little more stable, and part of it is the density of this shoe is just about designed to be a little more stable. But I will tell you, running, I found that the R1, for me, provided more stability. My arch felt more protected, and maybe it's because of the width in the forefoot. I felt like I was just more grounded in this shoe. But they're actually listing this as a neutral, cusping the line of stability. It's a little bit narrower. It has a higher drop. This one is a 10mm drop from a 36 down to a 26. So, you know, if you're somebody who's aware of that, you'll feel it. And I will tell you, even though this still had that nice, soft, cat burglary, quiet, glidey feel to it, I could totally feel the difference in the 2mm. And again, there's no perfect drop for everybody. You know, if everybody needed a 10mm drop, that's all we have. But just know this is a 10mm drop shoe, which again, for trainers now, seems to be on the higher side, but we certainly have people that like a higher drop for a trainer shoe. A little bit narrower, still has a lot of the same characteristics. I didn't quite feel as bouncy or quite as cushioned in this, which also is sort of by design. You know, it's a little more stable. It's a little bit more dense. You know, it weighs a little bit more. You know, we're talking about not a crazy difference here, but you're looking on your trainer at 9.35 ounces versus 8.5. And I will also say this is unisex sizing, so keep that in mind. So again, on my men's 11.5, we were at 9.35 ounces versus 8.5 on the men's. And if you're on their website, the Mountain Coast, you'll see there are women's sizes listed, but you kind of have to find the corresponding unisex sizing. So again, keep that in mind. And if you're a female who's a true be with, like, you might find yourself better off in the S1 because it's going to run a little bit narrow. This might be a little too wide for you if you're a female, just something that I would think about. Another thing I wanted to talk about with just sort of the overall presentation of this brand, because again, I didn't have a big file on it, but I was very impressed with sort of the whole presentation, and I don't think they did anything like, oh, here's this guy we're gonna send some shoes to who's gonna make a little silly video for us. But they send you, like, inside the box comes with a nice shoe bag. There was a nice little poster. Even the boxes that it shipped in on the outside of the shipping box had the size and the label and the brand and such. It was a very nice, as for a consumer, if you're somebody who's looking for a shoe, I really thought that their entire, like, from their website to the information to the way that the shoes arrived and packaged and things in it, really good. I mean, they're coming out of the gate swinging, and for $150 and $160 trainers, a trainer and a racer, I think they did a great job. Now, personally for me, because the price point is so similar between $150 and $160, I know they're calling this a racer, but I would probably use this more as a long distance trainer personally. I'm gonna pull, partly because of the width of it, I'm gonna pull the R1 every time. To me, it just feels a pinch more stable, even though it's not listed that way. I found it to be a little more bouncy, and I found it just to be just a pinch glidier, but both really fun, nice shoes, light, sneaky, quiet, subtle. It's, even the look of it is almost sort of subtle and minimalistic while still having a little bit of fun to it. So anyway, those are our thoughts on the S1 and the R1. New shoes, new brand, Mount to Coast. New brand came out in 2024. And again, we've just been starting to see a little more uptick in interest in it. So if this is a brand you're curious about, or if you've run in one of these, leave a comment down below. Let me know your thoughts. See what you think between the difference between the S1 and the R1 if you've run in either or both those shoes. We're gonna have a link down to their website. We're not a vendor. We're not a retail partner with them yet, but we will have a link to their website in our box down below, in the comments down below. So if you feel like purchasing a pair from them, knock yourself out. And if you find yourself in the greater Westminster, Maryland area, stop on by to Run More and say hello and pick up one of the fine products that we have here in shop. And if you want to buy something from us, we would love that. And if you enter promo code RUNMORE at our website, you will save 10% on all the shoes that we have that are new. Thank you so much. Happy running, and hopefully we see you around town. Thanks.